Commander Crix Valthan stood before his security team in the briefing chamber of the Iron Talon, his forearms crossed in what he hoped looked like confident authority. The holographic display behind him showed deck schematics peppered with red warning indicators. "Attention, you magnificent specimens of evolved intelligence," Crix began, his mandibles clicking with amusement. "We have ourselves a little pest problem. One human, yes, you heard correctly, one single, solitary Deathworlder has somehow managed to sneak aboard our glorious fortress ship." The assembled security officers exchanged glances that practically screamed seriously. Their chittering laughter filled the chamber like rustling leaves. "Now, I know what you're thinking," Crix continued, raising one clawed hand. "How does a primitive bipedal meat sack from a gravity well even breathe our refined atmosphere without collapsing?" Excellent question. Apparently, these creatures are too stupid to know when they're outmatched. Security Chief Vorn raised a tentacle. "Sir, shouldn't we just vent the affected sections to space? Save us the trouble of hunting." "Where's the fun in that?" Crix's compound eyes gleamed. "Besides, Command wants this one alive for interrogation. Something about studying their quaint little neural patterns." The corridors of the Iron Talon hummed with activity as security teams spread out like a well-oiled hunting machine. Crix monitored their progress from the command center, watching heat signatures dance across his tactical display. "Target is moving through Section 7, reported Tracker Zilk, her voice crackling through the comm system. "Heading toward Wait. That's the communication array." "Of course it is," Crix muttered, his secondary arms tapping impatiently on his console. "These Deathworlders always think they're so clever. Probably wants to send a cute little message home before we squash her like the insignificant bug she is." Maya Torres sprinted through the alien corridors, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The artificial gravity felt wrong, too light, making each step feel like she might bounce off the ceiling. Behind her, the sound of pursuit grew closer. Chittering voices, the scrape of claws on metal, the distinctive whine of energy weapons charging. She had to reach the communications array. Earth needed to know about the invasion fleet gathering beyond the asteroid belt. 300 ships, each one capable of glassing a continent. Her infiltration mission had uncovered their entire battle plan, but none of it mattered if she couldn't get the warning out. There she is. The translator in her stolen uniform crackled to life. Section 7 Alpha, moving fast. Maya rounded a corner and nearly collided with a maintenance drone. She vaulted over it, using the low gravity to her advantage, but the aliens were adapting to her movement patterns. Energy blasts sizzled past her head, leaving scorch marks on the pristine walls. The communication chamber door loomed ahead. Just 50 meters. 40. 30. Seal the exits. Crix's voice boomed through the ship's speakers. "Don't let the little pest escape." Maya burst into the communication chamber and immediately began working on the primary console. Her fingers flew over the alien interface, thank God for universal mathematical principles and her crash course in their language systems. Come on," she whispered, sweat beading on her forehead as connection protocols initialized. The chamber doors sealed behind her with a sound like a tomb closing. Crix arrived with a full security detail, their weapons trained on the lone human hunched over the communications array. Through the reinforced window, she looked so small, fragile, like she might break if someone sneezed too hard. Well, Crix announced, his voice amplified through the chamber's speakers. "End of the line, little Deathworlder. Step away from the console, and we might let you live long enough to see your home planet surrender." Maya looked up, her eyes blazing with defiance. "Go ahead and try to stop me, bugface. I've already sent half the data." "Stun her," Crix ordered calmly. "Low power. We need her conscious for questioning." But soldier Zeph Corvain, fresh from the academy and eager to prove himself, misheard the order. Or maybe he was just nervous. Or perhaps he thought a Deathworlder required maximum force to subdue. The plasma blast hit Maya square in the chest at full power. She crumpled to the floor like a marionette with cut strings, smoke rising from her scorched uniform. The communication console sparked and died, its circuits fried by feedback. Blast it, Corvain. Crix snarled. I said stun, not incinerate. Sorry, sir. Thought she might be more dangerous than she looked. Crix studied the motionless form through the window. No movement. No breathing that he could detect. Well, she's certainly not dangerous now. Seal the chamber. We'll dispose of the body after we reach Earth. Right now, we have an invasion to launch. The blast doors engaged with a final, decisive thud. The command deck buzzed with satisfied chittering as news of the humans' elimination spread through the Iron Talon. Crix preened himself, adjusting his ceremonial shoulder plates while his subordinates gathered around, offering congratulations that sounded suspiciously like relieved laughter. Admiral Grimwald will be pleased, Security Chief Vorn commented, polishing his sidearm with obvious satisfaction. One less variable to worry about during the invasion. Crix activated the long-range communicator, his image flickering to life on the flagship's bridge 3 sectors away. Admiral Nexus Grimwald's massive form dominated the screen, his crystalline carapace reflecting the bridge lights like a living prism. Report, Commander. Grimwald's voice rumbled through the speakers like distant thunder. Human infiltrator eliminated, sir, Crix announced proudly. Clean operation. Minimal damage to ship systems. Excellent. I trust disposal was thorough? Actually, sir, we've sealed the body in the communication chamber. Figured we'd save it for the science division after we finish glassing Earth. Might be interesting to study their primitive neural structure. Grimwald's laugh sounded like grinding stone. Wise thinking. These carbon-based life forms are so delicate, aren't they? One plasma blast and they simply stop functioning. No redundant systems, no backup organs, no regenerative capabilities. How they ever survived long enough to develop space travel is beyond my comprehension. It is rather pathetic, Crix agreed, feeling generous in victory. Our silicon-based biology gives us such advantages. Multiple heart analogs, distributed neural networks, self-repairing exoskeletons. These humans are basically walking meat bags held together by hope and stubbornness. Speaking of which, Grimwald continued, our intelligence suggests they reproduce by physically combining genetic material. Can you imagine? No wonder they're so emotionally unstable. The bridge crew erupted in more chittering laughter. Even the normally stoic navigation officer Kurix was clicking his mandibles in amusement. Orders, sir? Crix asked, wiping tears of mirth from his compound eyes. Continue as planned. Earth's orbital defenses won't know what hit them. 300 ships against their pitiful fleet? It'll be over before their primitive brains can process what's happening. ETA to Earth? 18 hours, sir. Perfect. Maintain radio silence until then. And Crix, well done. Your efficiency in handling this infiltration attempt reflects well on the entire hegemony. The transmission ended, leaving Crix basking in the warm glow of superior approval. Around him, his crew continued their work with renewed enthusiasm. The human threat was eliminated, Earth was doomed, and their glorious civilization would soon expand to encompass another primitive world. What could possibly go wrong? 6 hours into the victory celebration, Maintenance Supervisor Thok shuffled onto the command deck with the resigned expression of someone who'd drawn the short straw. His tool belt jangled with each step, and his naturally anxious demeanor seemed even more pronounced than usual. Commander, he began hesitantly, we're getting some odd reports from Section 7. Crix barely looked up from his tactical displays. Define odd, Supervisor. Well, sounds, sir. From the sealed communication chamber. Sounds? Crix's secondary arms continued their work while his primary attention remained focused on invasion preparations. The body settling, perhaps? Gases escaping? These organic creatures do tend to decompose in rather unpleasant ways. That's what I thought too, sir, but Thok shifted nervously. It's rhythmic, like banging, scraping, almost like someone's working in there. This got Crix's attention. He swiveled his command chair to face the maintenance supervisor directly. Working? Thok, the human is dead. Very dead. Plasma fried dead. What exactly are you suggesting? Nothing, sir. Just reporting what the sensors are picking up. Could be equipment malfunction. Maybe some of the blast feedback damaged the chamber's systems. Crix considered this. It made sense. The communication array had been fried when the human died, probably caused some secondary system failures. Run a diagnostic. If there's damaged equipment in there, I want it identified and isolated. Yes, sir. But 2 hours later, Thok was back, looking even more uncomfortable. Sir, diagnostics show all systems functioning normally in that section. Then what's causing the noise? Unknown, sir. But it's getting louder and more organized. As if summoned by their conversation, a rhythmic thudding echoed through the ship's hull. Distant, muffled, but unmistakably deliberate. The bridge crew paused their work, compound eyes turning toward the sound's apparent source. Probably just the hull settling under acceleration stress, Navigation Officer Quikes offered, though his voice lacked conviction. Another series of thuds, followed by what sounded distinctly like scraping metal. Hull settling doesn't scrape, Quikes, Security Chief Vorn muttered. Crix felt the first stirrings of unease in his primary stomach, but quickly suppressed it. He was a commander in the hegemony fleet, not some superstitious youngling afraid of strange noises. Continue monitoring. Alert me if the sounds interfere with ship operations. But as the hours passed, the sounds only grew stronger. By hour 10, the entire command crew was on edge. The sounds from Section 7 had evolved from simple banging to something that could only be described as construction work. Sir, Thok reported for the 5th time, his voice barely concealing panic, we're now detecting what sounds like drilling and cutting. And is that welding? The bridge fell silent except for the distant, persistent noise of metal being worked. Crix's confidence was beginning to crack like poorly forged armor under stress. That's impossible, he stated flatly. There's nobody alive in that chamber. Of course not, sir, Vorn agreed quickly. But maybe we should check the security feeds? Just to confirm the body hasn't shifted or something? Crix nodded curtly and activated the chamber's surveillance system. The screens flickered to life, showing nothing but static snow. Technical malfunction, he announced with forced calm. The plasma discharge must have damaged the camera array. Sir, Communications Officer Zelk spoke up hesitantly. I could try accessing the emergency backup feeds? More static. Every camera in that section was offline. What about thermal imaging? Suggested Vorn. Interference from the damaged systems, Crix replied, though his explanation sounded increasingly hollow even to himself. Engineer Vox, who'd been quietly monitoring ship systems, finally spoke up. Commander, with respect, that section is drawing power. Quite a bit of power, actually. What kind of power? Industrial levels. As if someone were operating heavy machinery in there. The bridge crew exchanged glances that ranged from confused to terrified. Several of the younger officers were clicking their mandibles nervously, a sign of deep distress in their species. Sir, Vorn said carefully, perhaps we should send a team to physically inspect the chamber? Just to be absolutely certain? Crix's pride bristled at the suggestion. Admitting concern about a dead human would make him look weak, superstitious. His carefully cultivated reputation for cool competence would crumble faster than a sandcastle in a plasma storm. Absolutely not, he declared firmly. I will not have my crew jumping at shadows and strange noises like frightened hatchlings. The human is dead. The chamber is sealed. Whatever's making those sounds has a perfectly logical explanation that doesn't involve impossible resurrections. But even as he spoke, a new sound joined the cacophony, the unmistakable whine of an energy weapon being charged. And it was coming from inside the sealed chamber. The explosion that followed made every previous sound seem like a gentle whisper. The iron talon bucked like a wounded beast as a shockwave tore through Section 7. Emergency klaxons screamed to life, bathing the command deck in pulsing red light. Crix was thrown from his chair as the ship's artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. Hull breach in Section 7. Engineer Vox shouted over the chaos. Massive structural damage. We're losing atmosphere. Emergency bulkheads. Crix barked, scrambling to his feet. Seal off that section before we... His words died in his throat as something came hurtling through the command deck's reinforced blast shutters like they were tissue paper. It was the door. The same 3-ton reinforced blast door they'd sealed the human behind. It spun end over end through the bridge, crushing Navigation Officer Crix's console into scrap metal and embedding itself halfway through the far wall with a sound like thunder. Through the smoking, jagged hole it left behind stepped Maya Torres. She looked absolutely terrible. Her stolen uniform was scorched and torn, revealing burn marks across her arms and chest. Her hair was singed, her face was streaked with soot and what might have been her own blood, but she was walking, breathing, and very much alive. More importantly, she was armed. In her hands, she carried what could only be described as the galaxy's most terrifying improvised weapon. It looked like someone had made it a plasma cutter with a particle accelerator and raised the offspring on a diet of pure malice. Cables snaked from it to a jury-rigged power pack strapped to her back, and the whole contraption hummed with barely contained energy. "Miss me?" Maya asked conversationally, her voice carrying clearly over the alarms. The bridge crew stood frozen in shock, mandibles hanging open, compound eyes bulging. Several of the younger officers made small, whimpering sounds. Crix found his voice first. "Impossible. You're dead." The plasma blast. "Yeah, funny story about that," Maya interrupted, raising her improvised weapon. The business end began to glow with an ominous blue light. "Turns out you guys know jack squat about human biology. Did you know we have 2 kidneys, 2 lungs, backup circulatory pathways, redundant neural clusters?" She gestured to the scorch marks on her chest with her free hand. "Your little zap gun fried my primary cardiovascular system, sure. Good thing I brought spares." Security Chief Vorn reached for his sidearm. Maya's weapon swiveled toward him with predatory precision. "I wouldn't," she advised cheerfully. "This little beauty is cobbled together from your communication array, some power conduits, and a couple of those nice explosive charges from your emergency systems. It's not exactly what you'd call stable. One wrong move and we all get to find out what the inside of a small star looks like." Vorn's hand froze halfway to his holster. "Smart bug," Maya continued. "Now, here's what's going to happen. You're all going to stand very still while I walk out of here. Anyone who tries to stop me gets to meet my new friend here." She patted the weapon affectionately. "I call him the door knocker. He's very good at making dramatic entrances." "You can't possibly," Crix began. "Can't possibly what? Survive being shot? Check. Turn a sealed chamber into a weapons factory? Double check. Use your own ship's systems against you?" Maya's grin was absolutely feral. "Oh honey, you haven't seen anything yet." Maya began backing toward the bridge's secondary exit, her weapon trained on the clustered aliens. They followed her movement like prey animals watching a predator, too terrified to move but unable to look away. "You want to know the really funny part?" Maya continued, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "You guys spent so much time congratulating yourselves on your superior biology and advanced technology that you forgot to do basic reconnaissance on your enemy." She kicked aside debris from the destroyed console, never taking her eyes off the aliens. "See, humans didn't get to the top of our food chain by being the biggest or the strongest. We got there by being the most stubborn, creative, and downright vindictive species our planet ever produced." Security Chief Vorn found his courage. "Our plasma weapons are designed to disrupt any known biological system. No organic creature can survive a direct hit." "Key word being known," Maya laughed. "You based your weapons on silicon-based life forms. Unfortunately for you, carbon-based biology works a little differently. When your plasma bolt hit me, it disrupted my primary organ systems, sure. But human bodies are designed for catastrophic failure scenarios." She gestured to herself with obvious pride. "Back up everything. Multiple redundant systems. automatic shock responses that shut down non-essential functions to preserve core processes. Your lethal blast put me in something like a coma while my body rerouted around the damage. That's impossible, Engineer Vox whispered. Tell that to the engineers who designed us, Maya replied. Evolution's a harsh teacher, and Earth was not a gentle classroom. Ice ages, volcanic winters, asteroid impacts, plague outbreaks, predators that could bite through steel. Survival of the fittest meant developing backups for our backups. She paused at the exit, her expression turning contemplative. You know what I did while you were celebrating out here? I got to work. Turns out your communication chamber is basically an electronics workshop if you know what you're looking for. Crix's mandibles clicked nervously. You were trapped, sealed in. No tools, no materials. No tools? Maya's eyebrows shot up. Buddy, I'm an engineer. Everything's a tool if you use it right. The blast that killed me fried your communication array, but it also gave me access to high-grade power conduits, processing chips, magnetic containment systems, and enough raw materials to build a small arsenal. She hefted her improvised weapon. Plasma cutter from the emergency systems, particle accelerator coils from the communications array, power regulation circuits from the life support backups, and a few little surprises from your own security systems. 10 hours of careful work, and voila portable doom dispenser. The aliens exchanged horrified glances. Their prisoner hadn't just survived, she'd turned her prison into a weapon factory. But that's not even the best part, Maya continued, her grin widening. See, while I was supposedly dead, you guys kept right on with your invasion preparations. All those tactical communications, fleet positioning updates, strategic planning sessions, they all went right through the communication hub I was sitting in. Crix felt his primary heart skip a beat. You couldn't have accessed our encrypted channels. Your encryption is based on mathematical principles, Maya interrupted. Math is universal. Give a human engineer 10 hours, access to your processing systems, and nothing better to do than crack codes? Please. I had your entire invasion plan decoded in 4 hours. She backed through the exit, but her voice carried clearly through the damaged bridge. The really beautiful part? I've been broadcasting everything to Earth for the last 6 hours. Fleet positions, ship capabilities, attack vectors, even your adorable little victory speeches. By now, Earth Defense Command knows exactly where you are, how many ships you have, and precisely when you plan to attack. The bridge fell silent except for the wailing alarms. The implications hit them like a cascade of falling dominoes. Oh, Maya added cheerfully, and they're bringing friends, lots of friends. What followed was less a military engagement and more a masterclass in creative problem-solving under pressure. Maya Torres transformed the Iron Talon from a warship into her personal playground, using every trick in the human book to turn their own systems against them. Crix rallied his security forces for pursuit, but Maya was always 3 steps ahead. She'd spent 10 hours studying their ship schematics while supposedly being a corpse, and now she used that knowledge with devastating efficiency. She's in the ventilation system, reported Tracker Zilk as her team stumbled through a corridor filled with knockout gas. Impossible, Crix snarled. Those ducts are too small for a human. Tell that to the human, sir. She's crawling through them like they were built for her species. 5 minutes later, half the security team was unconscious from improvised sleep gas Maya had concocted from the ship's medical supplies. The other half was lost in corridors that had mysteriously rearranged themselves thanks to Maya's creative use of the emergency bulkhead system. Sir, she's turned the internal navigation system against us, Engineer Vox reported, his voice tinged with something approaching admiration. The corridor maps keep changing. My team has been walking in circles for 20 minutes. Crix watched his tactical display dissolve into chaos as Maya systematically disabled ship systems with surgical precision. She wasn't destroying them, she was repurposing them. The food synthesizers now produced mild toxins that left his crew nauseated but alive. The maintenance drones had been reprogrammed to act as mobile obstacles, constantly getting underfoot at the worst possible moments. She's using non-lethal tactics, Security Chief Vorn observed, dodging a maintenance drone that seemed particularly interested in tangling itself around his legs. Of course she is, Crix realized with growing horror. She needs us alive to operate the ship. She's not trying to destroy us, she's trying to capture us. The thought was more terrifying than any death threat. To be defeated by a single human was embarrassing. To be outwitted and captured by one was unthinkable. All units, converge on engineering, Crix ordered. If she wants to take control of this ship, she'll need access to the main reactor. We'll make our stand there. Whoa! Oh. But Maya was already thinking several moves ahead. As Crix's forces rushed toward engineering, she was busy in the weapons bay, reprogramming their own defensive systems. By the time they realized their mistake, the ship's internal security turrets had been turned against them, herding the alien crew like sheep toward the exact location Maya wanted them. She's not heading for engineering, Vorn reported breathlessly. She's driving us there while she goes somewhere else. Where? Crix demanded. The answer came in the form of another explosion, this one from the ship's core. Not destructive, but definitely attention-getting. Maya Torres had reached the main reactor. Crix burst into the reactor chamber with the remnants of his security force, weapons raised and ready for a final desperate battle. What he found instead was Maya Torres sitting casually on a control console, her improvised weapon resting across her lap, surrounded by a fascinating array of jury-rigged equipment that definitely hadn't been there an hour ago. "Welcome to the party," she said cheerfully. "You're just in time for the big finale." The reactor chamber hummed with strange harmonics, and Crix realized with growing dread that the massive fusion core was being used for something far beyond its original design parameters. "Step away from the reactor," he ordered, though his voice lacked its usual authority. "You don't understand the forces you're dealing with." "Oh, I understand perfectly," Maya replied, gesturing to her improvised equipment. "Fusion reactor equals massive energy output. Massive energy output plus proper modulation equals really, really powerful transmitter. Really powerful transmitter plus 10 hours of invasion intelligence equals." She paused dramatically. "Well, let's just say Earth got the message." Crix felt his remaining confidence crumble. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Maya pulled out a small device that looked suspiciously like it had been built from components of their own communication systems. "Live feed from Earth Defense Command. Want to listen in?" She activated the device, and suddenly the reactor chamber filled with the sound of human voices speaking in rapid, clipped tones. "7th Fleet reports ready for deployment. Admiral Chen sends her regards to our uninvited guests. And 12th Fleet's moving to intercept positions. ETA 6 hours. Tell our alien friends they picked the wrong species to underestimate." Crix's compound eyes widened as more reports flooded through the improvised communicator. Dozens of ships. Hundreds. The entire human defense fleet, plus reinforcements from their colony worlds, all converging on their position. "You see," Maya continued conversationally, "the thing about humans is we're really, really good at holding grudges. You wanted to glass our planet? Well, congratulations. You've just united every human faction in the galaxy against a common enemy." She stood up, shouldering her weapon. "Now, here's how this is going to work. You're going to surrender this ship peacefully, submit to arrest as war criminals, and pray that human justice is more merciful than human vengeance." Crix looked around at his defeated crew, then back at the small, battered human who had single-handedly turned their invasion into a disaster. "We surrender," he said quietly. Maya smiled. Smart bug. Crix sat in his detention cell aboard the human ship Defiance, staring at the reinforced walls and contemplating the spectacular failure of what should have been the hegemony's greatest triumph. The irony wasn't lost on him that he was now imprisoned behind the same type of blast doors they'd used to seal Maya Torres away. Except these doors were designed by humans. They probably had 17 different backup systems and could survive being used as projectile weapons. Through the small window he could see the wreckage of the Iron Talon being carefully dissected by human engineers. They were studying every bolt, every circuit, every design principle with the methodical precision of a species that had learned to adapt and overcome anything the universe threw at them. Maya had visited him once, just before the human fleet departed for hegemony space. She'd looked remarkably better after medical treatment, though she still carried that improvised weapon like a treasured memento. "You know what your biggest mistake was?" she'd asked, settling into the visitor's chair with casual confidence. Crix had remained silent, his pride still too wounded for conversation. "You assumed that because we looked primitive, we were primitive. You never bothered to ask why a species that survived ice ages, volcanic winters, asteroid impacts, global plagues, world wars, and reality television might have developed certain survival instincts." She'd stood to leave, then paused at the door. "Here's some free advice for your intelligence division, assuming they still have jobs after this debacle. Never underestimate a species that considers impossible to be a personal challenge." Now, sitting alone in his cell, Crix finally understood. The hegemony's perfect invasion plan had been undone by one angry human with a toolbox, an engineering degree, and the kind of stubborn attitude that treated certain death as merely an inconvenience. Somewhere in the distance, he could hear human laughter echoing through the ship's corridors. They were probably sharing stories about the alien idiots who'd locked a human engineer in a room full of electronics and expected her to stay dead. The sound was terrifying,